Hey guys, Jennifer from Scrapping Under the Influence. We are going to start our tutorial for the Christmas box mini album that I designed for Country Craft Creations. Since obviously this one is completely done, we are going to start from scratch. I made this while on vacation where I could not record it, so we're going to be going over it from scratch. So let me move this to the side. Let's start with the base. So for the base, we're going to get the entire base out of 2 sheets of chipboard. So the first piece, we're going to cut, of course, let me pull that off of there. This is, of course, 12 by 12 chipboard. So we're going to cut our first piece, we're going to cut 2 inches. And then another 2 inches. And then we're going to cut that remaining piece, turn it, and cut it to 8 inches. What I have been doing on this, just to make it so I know what I'm doing for sure, I'm actually writing on these which is which. So for our 2 little 2-inch pieces here, we're going to cut these down to 8 inches. So these are 2 inches by 8 inches. Okay. Now, you should have a piece left that is going to be 4 inches by 8 inches. We want to cut this one down to 7 7/8 high. So it's going to be 4 inches by 7 7/8. Okay, set that aside. And yes, this does make a difference as far as, be sure to write your sizes on here because we're going to have 2 more pieces that are 8 inches. I'm sorry, that are just slightly smaller than this. So write on them which ones they are so you don't get them confused. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go, instead of 2 inches, we're going to go 1 7/8. And if you have the dolly cutter, you'll know this is like always kind of weird because you can't really cut to this one side. You have to kind of do your measurements from the end over. So it always kind of throws me for a second. So if I'm a little slow on this, that's why. So you're going to have 2 pieces that are 1 7/8. Okay, and we're going to cut these to 7 7/8. Okay, these are 7 7/8. Okay, and then we're going to cut this one. Maybe just a little piece that's going to get trimmed off the side here. So you've got another piece that's 8 by 8. And then we're going to do one more that's going to be 4 inches by 7 7/8. All right. So, I'm just going to move the big trimmer out of the way. So what's going to happen is you're going to have your base. On your sides, you're going to have your 7 7/8 by 1 7/8 pieces. And then your 4" by 7 7/8. Okay. Your top and bottom are going to be the 2" by 8" pieces. And then this is the piece that we're going to cut that notch into, that are going to attach to those pieces. So all of these pieces right here, we are just going to wrap in chipboard. Okay, if you haven't seen the new way of wrapping albums that Tammy has come up with, it is actually perfectly suited for something like this, because we've got that, we're not wrapping the paper around the outside, and this is kind of a different shape. It doesn't matter because of how we're actually attaching these pieces to the base. So these 4 pieces are all getting wrapped just completely, you know, individually, like we did with Tammy's new method. These pieces are going to be wrapped slightly different as far as how you fold it. You're going to leave those wings on those pieces. But for now, let's work on getting the notch cut into our album here. So I've got my little Tim Holtz ruler, and I'm just finding the center of this piece of chipboard. Okay. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to turn this sideways. I'm going to come down. Where did I come down? 1.5 inches. Okay. I'm going to come down 1.5 inches. Let's turn this so it's actually the right measurement. I'm going to come down 1.5 inches on this side, and I'm going to make a mark. I'm going to turn it. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Come down 1.5 inches. We're going to make a mark. And then I'm going to take and I'm going, hold on, I have to look here. Let's see how I did this. Okay. From the center, I'm going to come down 5 inches. Is it really 5 inches? Hold on. Bear with me. I'm sorry. I don't know that I wrote that down when I actually did this. No. 4 3/4. Okay. We're going to come down 4 3/4, and we're going to mark it. We're going to put our pencil on the 4 3/4. We're going to come up to our little notch, our little mark here at 1.5 inches, and we're going to draw a line. You're going to turn it, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay. These 2 lines are what we're going to cut to get the notch in our book. You can do this with a ruler and an X-Acto knife, which is how I did the other one, because I was not at home with my normal tools. I was using my ones I travel with, and that trimmer's a little bit different than this one. What I'm going to do, and I've done this before with other things that you've probably seen me do, is I'm going to use my blade that I've got for my chipboard, which is just my one that I've got, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's the one I usually use for chipboard, so I've just marked it with and honestly, it might be easier to do this with a ruler. Okay, we're going to do the same thing again, and literally all I'm doing is kind of holding this so I can see where that blade's going to come down, and lining the blade up on top of the chipboard, and then just pivoting this to where my line is. assuming I am not a complete moron. We're most of the way through this, and I just need to finish it off with my knife and go through that last little bit on the back side of the chipboard. Okay, so one thing that you need to be aware of when we go to wrap this, this is actually going to make this a little bit, actually no, it's going to be okay. Just kidding. That was where I screwed up on my other one and why there's kind of a gap, because I was thinking it was going to be too bulky once we wrap this with cardstock that it wasn't going to line up right, and I actually ended up inadvertently creating the gap. So we're going to wrap our chipboard. So let me find my scoreboard. Change my blade and that trimmer. Maybe. Put the normal blade back. All right, so for this one, I think I am going to wrap this. I think we're going to use just some good old white artisan cardstock. And we're actually going to wrap these two pieces first. I'm going to show you how to wrap one of these and then one of these, and then just for time's sake, I'll wrap the rest of them off camera, because with the normal shaped pieces, there's not going to be a whole lot differently that you need to do to wrap this. So to wrap our two little funny shaped pieces here, we want the cardstock to wrap these to be 1 inch bigger than the actual chipboard itself. So because this is 8 inches wide, we need 10 inches by 8.5. And then for the other piece, let's put this one there, we need 10 inches, because again, it's 8 inches wide by 6 3/4. Okay, move that for now. I'm actually going to get out some score tape. I am going to use my rolls instead of my score tape sheets, just because that's what I feel like using today. So I'm going to go ahead and just get some score tape on the back of this. And I'm actually going to do it like this, because this is going to be a little bit easier to get the tape on here. Without wasting a whole bunch of it. So we're just going to cover the entire back of this. And this is, I believe, 1.5 inch score tape. Yes, 1.5 inch. I also have a gigantic roll of 2.5 inch that we're going to use on other pieces. So 1/2 inch roll. Okay. So without the crinkling, I forgot I ran out of 1/2 inch on my trip. Actually, I don't think I need 1/2 inch. I think I need 3/8. So, oh my gosh, it's gonna be one of those days, isn't it? All right, so we're just gonna flip this back over. We're gonna take the knife and we're just gonna come back through here. What? I guess, but keep it turned down. Okay. Let's get through all the way on there. All right, so those are covered in tape. We're going to start with this one because this one's actually a little bit easier to work with than the other one. As soon as I find my little knife, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to get the backing off of this. And it may seem like overkill using that much score tape, but it helps when you're trying to get your covers, the paper on the covers, to be completely flat. It's quite honestly the best way to do it. So, okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my scoreboard, I'm going to put my paper on here. Like I said, this is Tammy's new way of wrapping albums. It's so easy, it works really well, and it's almost perfectly suited for something like this where it's a little bit different shape. So we are going to put our cardstock, we're going to use our scoreboard to help us here, put it all the way in the corner, and then these pieces are just 2 1-inch pieces of scrap chipboard that I am just using as a guide to get my 1-inch all the way around. Okay, all we're going to do is fold this over, and we're going to burnish those edges down. Okay, and do the same thing again on that little tiny narrow piece. And you're going to burnish that all the way out because this is going to help us figure out where we need to trim. Okay, do it again here, and we're going to do it again here. Okay, so now, let's figure out where my scissors disappeared to on me. Okay, I guess we're using little ones. I don't want to use little ones. Okay, yes, we're using the big ones. Okay, so you'll notice we've got a whole bunch of paper right here. All I'm going to do is stick this back in here, line that fold mark up, and trim it off so that I've got 1 inch. Roughly. It's not exact, it's okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cut out that square. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay. Fold this over. Fold this up. Make sure nothing's hanging off the edge. If there is, you're just going to come in here, use the chipboard as a guide, put your scissors against that, and then just pivot ever so slightly and trim. Okay. Alright, so that side's good. This side, we're going to cut on these score lines. So you're going to have this kind of diagonal, and then you're going to have straight up and down. Okay. Same thing again. You're cutting on that score line. And we're doing the same thing here. I'm going to make sure none of that's hanging over the edge. Using the chipboard as the guide, and trim. Okay, so there's those corners. For our top, we're going to do the same thing again. Just going to trim on those fold lines. And you're not going to have anything that's going to be hanging over here just because of the way this has been trimmed. Okay, so I'm going to get my glue. I'm going to start here at the bottom. I'm going to run glue along. There we go. There. And then, of course, onto the paper. I'm going to fold it over and burnish it down. Do the same thing here. I am going to leave the smaller tabs for last. And again, we're going to come over and over. Oops. There we go. And one more time. Come over. And then we'll do these little side pieces. Okay, so there is our first piece. Now let's do our other funny piece. Okay, do the same thing again. We're going to put our cardstock on here. We're going to use our little guides again. Get the backing off our tape. Don't pull the tape off the chipboard, that kind of defeats the purpose. Okay, we're going to do the same thing again. We're just going to line that up. Pull our guides out, and then we're going to fold just like we did before. So we're going to use that chipboard to fold that over and crease. Fold it over and crease. Okay, now for this little center part, we can't really crease it necessarily, so we're going to leave that as is. We're going to come in here. Actually, I take it back. That's how I did it. Fold it that way. And crease one more time. just so we know where our corners are that need to be cut. And then we're going to cut here. Okay. And then again, we're going to check to make sure we don't have anything hanging over the edge there. Use that chipboard as a guide. So you put your scissors up against the side there and then just pivoting ever so slightly to get that edge cleaned up. Okay, so for this piece in here, all I ended up doing was just kind of going from this corner up here, because it's an inch out, and just cutting this down till I'm about an inch from that side, going to the other side and doing the same thing. Because ultimately all of this is getting covered with patterned paper, it's not going to matter that that's not perfect, and it will be fine. Okay, so what I did here, I just lined this up, just snip that down to that corner, and then this is going to get bent over like so, and we're going to trim this piece out here. Okay. Okay, so I'm actually going to glue the two inside pieces first. And then all I did on that little piece right there is I just took a scrap and just kind of lined it up on here, simply so that there was paper going right up to the edge of that corner. And it doesn't even have to be this big. So literally just take one of your scraps and line it up right there. Okay, and then we're going to do you're going to kind of eyeball where this goes over and cut it as a little bit more. There we go. Okay, and the same thing on the other side. You're going to trim this off. Just kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have to be exact. It will be fine. Okay. I actually cut that one in a little bit too much, but that's okay. We'll make it work. Yeah, see, I did cut that in just a little bit too much on that corner, but that's okay. Depending on what color cardstock you're using to build your base. If you're doing black and you ever cut something like that, literally you can just take a black marker and color the chipboard, and you will never know that there was anything out of whack there. I do that regularly enough to know for sure it does work. Okay. All right. So those two pieces are now wrapped, ready to go. I'll set those off to the side. And for the rest of this, I'm going to show you one of the base pieces and how you wrap that. You're going to do all three of these pieces, so the 8x8 and then the 4x7 and 7/8 pieces, the two of those, exactly the same. So we'll do the big piece. Okay, so because it's 8x8, we need to add 2 inches, so we're going to cut a 10x10 square. Okay. And I actually need to get score tape on the back of this. And on one of our little wing pieces, so we'll do them both at the same time. What did I do? Oh, it's right in front of me, good Lord. Okay. And of course, if I was using my full sheets, which I'm running low on, and literally just placed an order and forgot to include them because I was sitting there like thinking, I know there's something else I'm about out of. Yeah, that's what it was. It wasn't just magnets. Running out of magnets, running out of everything. Okay. Let's do this piece really quickly so it's ready to go. Okay. Okay. Now let's move that one back off to the side. Make sure this is burnished down. Alright, let's try this again. Okay. So we have our 10x10 piece that we're going to wrap our 8x8 back base piece with. Okay. So we're going to go again with the guide pieces to make sure we have that that 1 inch border all the way around. And then we're actually going to kind of come in here and fold just like we did before. And crease. Go all the way around, folding and creasing on each side. Okay, got all those nice little creases in there. And come through and cut out our corners. Okay. And then again, we're going to trim so that there's nothing hanging over. Again, scissors against the side of the chipboard, using it as a guide to pivot and trim. Pivot and trim. That's not quite. There we go. And again, we're going to pivot and trim. Okay. This one, okay. It's like I know I didn't do one side. Okay. Lay this out flat. And I should have done this on the other piece, I actually forgot. It just kind of helps to come along here and just kind of burnish this from the other side. Kind of train the paper where it's actually going to end up going. Not necessarily, but it does help. And I should have done that on those other two pieces and I actually forgot. So don't be like me. Pay attention to what you're doing. Okay. So then we're going to run our glue along our edge. Just like we did before. We're going to pull that up. And over. And then we're going to go to the opposite side and do the same thing. Come up. And then over. Up and over. And again, the final side. Okay. And again, we're going to come up and over. All right, so there's your back piece. You're going to wrap the two 4-inch by 7 7/8 inch pieces the exact same way. Okay, all 4 of those will get wrapped that way, or sorry, 3 of those will get wrapped that way. So for our little hinge spines really, this one is going to be, I think I'll probably do it from scrap here. Okay, so it's 7 7/8, so we want it to be 9 7/8. It's 1 7/8 wide, so we want to go 3 7/8 wide. Same thing again, we're lining it up in here. We're using our 1-inch guides. Get the backing off of this. Okay, and just use those guides. And there you go. Okay, I'm going to fold again, but this time for these spine pieces, we are not going to cut out the corner. We're not cutting that little square out of the corner. Because the hinge, I'm sorry, the spine, not the hinge, the spine needs to be reinforced. Okay, so instead of cutting in and in, you're going to go against, lined up on that score mark, go across the one on top, and you're going to cut off the corner. Okay, turn this over again and come around and just kind of run our bone folder around the sides here. Turn it back over, and what we're going to do is we're going to glue on the top and on the bottom. Okay. Again, we're going to fold that over, and we're going to come out. Okay. So instead of cutting out that square to wrap the entire piece, we're just going to wrap the top edge and the bottom edge and leave our little wings out to the side, because that is how you're going to attach all of these various cover pieces together. Okay. All right, so for all of our spine pieces, so you're going to have two pieces that are 7 7/8 by 1/8, and two pieces that are 2 inches by 8 inches. You're going to wrap all of these like this. Okay, I'm going to shut the camera down, get these wrapped and ready to go, and we'll come back and actually assemble the base of our book. Okay, so at this point, you should have wrapped your 4 spine pieces so that you've got this flap on the outside. You should have 2 that are 7 7/8 by 1 7/8. You should have 2 that are 2 inches by 8 inches. You should also have your 2 little front closure pieces, your 8 by 8 that is wrapped entirely, and then the 2 pieces that are 4/8 by 7 7/8. Okay, we're going to start with our sides. So for the sides, we need the 2 pieces that are 7 7/8 by 1 7/8. What we're going to do, I'm going to turn this over and turn this over. And come in here, and we're going to burnish down the side. Okay. My glue, and I'm going to run my glue all over this tab. And then I'm going to take my side piece, line them up together flush, top and bottom. And this does actually hang over, so I actually did screw this up just a tiny bit. So what we should have done, and what I'm going to do is just come in here and kind of trim that. It will be okay. We do need to miter the top of that flap ever so slightly. Getting ahead of myself here. So that's what we should have done on this side as well, but it's glued down, it's fine. We're just going to burnish it down on this side. We're going to fold it over, fold it flat like that, and burnish again. And there's one side. Okay, I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing to get the other side on here. Now, these 2 pieces are the same height. They're both 7 7/8. This side is 8 inches. So when we go to put this down, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to burnish one more time, get this good and flat and pushed in. When we attach this side, you're going to want to center this so you've got that little like 1/16 of an inch top and bottom. Get it as close as you can. So that's down there. Burnish this. I'm gonna fold it over. Burnish again. And there we go. There's one side. Okay, I'm gonna slide that out of the way. Do the same thing on this side. First, again, scissors on the edge of that chipboard, move it in ever so slightly, and just miter that side ever so slightly. Okay, so again, we're going to flip it over. Come in here, burnish that down, work those fibers. And again, we're going to come in here, push that up against that. Burnish on this side, and fold over, burnish again, and that side is also ready to go. Okay, and then once again, because this piece is slightly larger than this piece, okay, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to center this up as best we can. You want to try really hard to get this even with how it's centered up on the opposite side. Okay, turn it over again, burnish this down. Again. Okay. And there's the first part of our base. Now, if you wanted to stop here, you absolutely could. No reason you couldn't. But we're going to put our top and bottom pieces on. So, again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to miter this ever so slightly. This out of the way for right now. Turn this over. We're going to do the exact same thing again. Just want to push that paper down and mold it over the side of that. And then, since these are both 8 inches wide, this one is easy enough to center up. Line it there, flip it over. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing here. And once again, this part is 8 by 8, this is 8 by 8, so it just goes just flush up against there. have to be a little bit careful when you turn this over to burnish, because it is a little bit awkward. Okay, fold it over, burnish again, and we're going to do the same thing for the other piece. Turn this all the way around, and again, burnish, burnish. Okay. And one more time, we're going to flip this over. Burnish one more time. And we're going to glue one more time. In there, get that lined up, press it down, carefully flip it over, burnish this down, and we're going to fold up again, and there you go. There is our base. So this should fold in all the way until those touch. This should come up over the top, and this should come up here and slide right in there. Okay, we are going to put some magnets in there, but first we need to cover up and reinforce our hinges here. So what I have here are 4 pieces that are 5 inches wide. Okay, so 5 inches by 7 3/4. I have covered the backs with score tape. And again, that's just because it makes it go down nice and smooth when you put it down. You could glue these down, absolutely, that's entirely up to you. The glue, but then you have to, you know, wait to make sure the glue is dry, make sure you've got enough of it on there, that kind of thing. In most cases, this is going to be a little bit easier. Okay, I'm going to turn this sideways again. Line this up over that hinge. Burnish it down. And then we're going to bend again. Okay. Turn it and do the other side. And we're going to do the top and bottom pieces last because they are a little bit weird because of the shape. So you have to position it just a touch differently, but that's okay. Okay. All right. Again, we're going to burnish that down. We're going to bend. And we're going to apparently have gunk on the front of our book because there we go. And bend again. Okay. Let's do this top piece. So before I pull this off here, the top one you're going to do pretty much like you've done the sides. The bottom one, actually I think they're all okay. I take it back. They're fine. I was thinking I had to do something weird on these, and I think I did something. I did these smaller, and they really didn't need to be on the other one. I think that's where I'm confused. Okay. Okay. And bend and bend. One more time. We're going to do the same thing again. And then the base will be done other than putting our magnets on. Okay. Okay. Burnish and fold and fold. Let me grab my magnets. So I will warn you now, this book ended up being fairly magnet heavy, depending on how you decide to decorate and whatnot a couple of these pages. What did I just do? Right. That one is not. But that's okay because I need another one anyway. Okay. So what I ended up doing was I had a magnet, 2 magnets here. Put one there. And one there. We're going to do these one at a time. So you're going to fold this up. You're going to fold this so that the edges are even. And then press to get that magnet separated out there. And then what I ended up doing was, a little piece of 1-inch score tape that I'm going to put over that magnet to make sure it stays where it needs to. And on this one, since you're going to be matting this, you'll just pull the backing off at the time that you go to mat it, and it will be fine. Okay. All right. I'm going to do that again on this side. Closes up there. And then this one, I think I ended up using 2 magnets on this as well, just to ensure that it was going to hold the way I wanted it to hold. So you're going to have 4 sets total on the front of the book. Sure that's down in exactly where it needs to go. And I'm going to push up from underneath, and there we go. And then we'll just tape them down on this side as well. Okay. There is the base of our book. And that's what I'm saying. That's why we ended up with 2 sets on this side, and I need to come down a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. All right, so let's set that to the side for right now. So let's work on our hinge. Our hinge is going to be 7 5/8 high. And we're going to leave it 12 inches wide for now. Now, what we're going to do, this is going to be kind of funky, so what we're going to do, starting on this end, we're going to score at 1/4 inch. We're going to score at 3/4 inch, and then 1 1/4. Okay, so this right here is going to be our first hinge. Our gussets are going to be 3/8 inch. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and there's our first gusset. And then we're going to go 1/2 inch again. So we're right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've got hinge, gusset, hinge, gusset. And we're going to go another 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then that'll be it. So 1/4 inch, 3/4, 1 1/4, 1 5/8, 2 1/8, 2 5/8, 3 inches, 3 1/2, 4, 4 3/8, 4 7/8, 5 3/8. So this is going to give us 1, 2, 3, 4 hinges, and then our gussets. Okay, so what we're going to do, I prefer to use score tape. Not everybody does. That's just my preference. You can absolutely glue your hinges. It's not going to matter. I'm going to come in here and get our tape on our hinges. Alright, so start with the furthest one over, fold this in half, backing off our tape, fold, and burnish. Okay, I'm going to come back for my next one. Same thing again, I'm going to pre-fold it, make sure everything's straight. Backing off of here, and fold again one more time, burnish. Let's get our last little hinge here. Alright, so we're going to come back, I'm going to start working those, and then we've still got this little 1/4 inch score on the tail end here. I'm going to fold that up, like so. Okay, start working those hinges so that they're going to lay flat, or not lay flat, so that they're going to move easily. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so you've got your hinges. You saw this big long flap. We're going to fold that piece back this way, And then this whole section is getting glued down on the back to this piece that we folded now over the back. Okay. So I am going to glue lots and lots of glue. Well, not lots and lots, but you know, depends on the glue. Art glitter, you don't have to use nearly as much as you think. It's just that good. Okay. So, put that down. We're just basically going to work in between in our gussets and burnish that down. Okay. Now, so this should be 1 3/4 high. We're going to score it again at that 1 3/4 mark. Okay. Okay. So this is what you're going to end up with. Okay. This is going to go down in here like so. To put it in here the right way, you're going to kind of turn your book to the side. You're going to stand this up, and at the same time you're going to push this back against it. Okay, so let me kind of turn this up this way. So putting this in here, oops, it's kind of a hard one to explain. Putting it in here, folding it over, pushing it up against that side there, and then pushing this side up so that it's straight up the way it's going to be, and then we're going to like center it up and attach it. Okay. And again, glue or score tape, whichever your preference is right here. For this one, I am going to use the glue, just because it's a little bit more forgiving. We need to just center this there, and there we go. All right, there's your hinge. Your hinge is in the book. All right, so let's work on pages. Set this off to the side. So there's 4 pages. For your page faces, you're going to cut 4 pieces that are 7 3/4 by 8 3/4, and 4 pieces that are 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. The 4 that are the 7 3/4 by 8 3/4, you're going to score 1/2 inch on each end on the 8 3/4 inch side. Okay, I have already put these 4 together so that they're ready to go, and we'll do the last one together. So what I typically will do, I will fold this over, burnish it down, fold the other one over, burnish it down again, and then I'm just going to line this piece up like so. I'm going to come in here at the end of my score tape and then just very gently pull this along and then push it down. Then it is perfectly lined up. You don't have anything hanging over. It's even. It's ready to go. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Just line it up. Zip that out of there. And there's your page. Okay. Get this out of the way. All right, so the rest of this is going to go really fast. There's nothing super complicated about any of this. It'll go really easily. So let's take our first page. Make sure that the open, where this is going to slip down on the hinge, is on the side so that your pages are facing the right direction. Because God knows I have put enough of these together where I have turned something wrong and found it out later. I can't even tell you. Okay, so page 1, we're going to start with the pocket. Pocket is 8 3/4 by 4 1/4. You're going to score it 1/2 inch on each end on the 8 3/4 side, and on one side and on the 4 1/4 side. Cut our corners, miter our corners. And then we are going to fold and burnish. Fold and burnish. Fold and burnish. And I'm going to lift up just a tiny bit there and attach that corner down, and then do the same thing on the other side. Backing off, and we're going to line this up on the bottom of the page. One thing to keep in mind, and when I'm giving you the measurement 8 3/4, you can cut it 8 3/4. What I tend to do is cut it just a hair shorter, because when you're scoring, you're going to score 1/2 inch, and you're going to turn the paper, and then you're going to score again. That's going to keep your pockets, your flaps, anything like that from ending up hanging just slightly over the edge of the page. Okay? Just the way I do it. You don't have to do it that way. If you have another trick to keep that from happening, by all means, go for it. Then we've got 2 flaps. Both flaps are 6 inches by 4 inches. You're going to score it 1/2 inch on the 6 inch side. Get these folded over and burnished. And these are just going on the top here and are going to slightly overlap. Actually, they're just a hair long. So I am going to probably make a mess, but we're going to try it anyway. I am going to cut just like a 1/16 of an inch off of that because they're just slightly too big, but that's okay. You can see where yours end up when you go to place them on the page. Okay, so this I'm going all the way to the end and all the way to the top. Put that down, flip it around, and do the same thing on the other side. And when I'm trying to line these up so that they're even, what I'll do is I'll get my backing off, and just with my fingernail, I'll just hold that flap, the sticky part, down. And then I'm just going to line it up to my end here, and then line it up with that top. Okay? And there we go. There's our first page. I do have a magnet in here in my other book. If you wanted to do a little string closure here, you could. It's entirely up to you when you go to decorate how you want to close that off. Okay. Next page. This is the one that has all the little flappy doos here, there, and everywhere. So we've got 2 flaps, 4.5 by 7 3/4, and 5.5 by 7 3/4. You're going to score each of these flaps at 1/2 inch. I'm going to put the larger one to the left and the smaller one to the right. If you wanted these to go up and down, you could. Because they are cut to the width of the page and this page is square, you can actually do it that way if you wanted to. Okay, so I'm just going to the edge, line it up top and bottom, brush it down, and then do the other side. Okay. Okay, so those go like that. I'm going to open this up, and I had a little tiny pocket down here in this corner. The pocket is 4 1/4 by 2 1/2. You're going to score 1/2 inch on each end on the 4 1/4 side, and on one side of the 2 1/2 inch side. You're going to cut out little squares in the corners. And then you're going to adhere this down. However, I would wait to adhere this down until you go to matte, because I ended up having to kind of trim my paper funny and then add a border strip because, of course, it was off. That it would have been easier to have matted this, put this down, and then matte the front of the pocket. So it's ready to go. I'm actually just going to paper clip it back to this page once we're finished with it, and then I can put it down later. Okay, so let me just double check how I did this because I'm drawing a blank. Okay, so they are on the small one, that's right. Okay, so these two flaps, you can have them going just one after the other. I actually had them rotated so that they come out like this and then fold together. And then on this other side, I just had them side by side, and then I just had some decorative paper down this side. It's entirely up to you how you want to put these on here. You absolutely don't have to do it exactly like I'm doing it. That's what makes these so fun to do. You can change it up however you want to. You could just build that base and then do your pages in whatever design and configuration you want to. It's up to you. That's what's so fun about this hobby. Okay. So I'm going to put these on this side. Around. And there we go. On the other side, I can do them where they go up and down like this. I could turn them to the side. I think I'm going to just keep them the way I had them in the other book for simplicity's sake. Whoops, no, let's not do that upside down. Yeah, okay. Let's not do that upside down. All right. And then I'm going to just make sure this flap is pushed all the way down. Line this up. And then down again. You could do magnets in here to close this if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. At the moment I am out of the small magnets, which is what I would use for that, so it's going to have to wait. All right, and then I did have a big magnet in here holding this whole page closed. Again, it's up to you if you wanted to do string closure, seam binding, something like that. Absolutely, you could do it. So there's our first page done, ready to go. Let's grab another page base and move on. All right, so this page, we've got a couple of big flaps. We have a folio and we have a belly band. So the folio, excuse me, 7.5 by 12. You're going to score it at 6 inches. Just fold it in half. That's all you got to do there. The belly band is going to be 2 inches by 8 3/4. You're going to score it 1/2 inch on each end on the 8 3/4 side. Oh, I should have folded that before I did that. It's okay. We're going to get this down. Literally all I'm doing here is just centering this up on the page. Okay. And then the two flaps just overlap like so. The flaps are 6.5 by 6 inches, scored at 1/2 inch on the 6.5 inch side. And both of them are identical. You could do this where you have them opening top to bottom, in which case you would put them down before the belly band. I am going to just keep this the same as the other book. And again, I am just centering this up on this side. Putting it down. And then the same thing on the other side. Alright, and there's page 3. Okay, we're going to turn this over and move on to the next side. Now this is the page that I did where I've got the flaps that are the same size as the page once they're all down. That I matted it in such a way that I was able to keep the entire image of whatever was on the pattern paper together with just that slight gap. So to do this, you need 4 pieces that are 3 7/8 by 4 3/8. You're going to score it 1/2 inch on the 4 3/8 side. Okay. All we're going to do is get these all burnished. Folded and burnished, that is. Somehow don't think I'm cooking dinner tonight. It's 5 o'clock. All right. So I'm going to, which really this doesn't have a right or a wrong way, so we'll just pretend it's upside down. Or does it? Okay, yes, it is upside down. So I'm going to turn it upside down. I'm going to start up here at the top. I'll line that first one up flush with the side and with the top. And go to the next one and do the same thing, only this time I'm making sure it's flush with the top and it's also flush with the side of that other flap. Okay. For this one, again, I'm just going to use my fingernail, hold that sticky side down. I'm going to push so this side is even with this side, and this top piece is pushing up against the bottom of the flap above it. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing over here. And there you go. It's that simple. Okay. That page is also done. See, really the hardest part of this one is the base. The rest of this, piece of cake. Okay, so for this next one, we have 2 flaps that open out this way, but on top of those flaps we've got 2 belly bands, and it looks like I actually forgot to cut the mat that sits in between them, that sit side by side, that you're going to run a 5x7 photo mat through to hold this page closed. So we're going to start with the 2 side flaps. These are 4 7/8 by 7 3/4. You need 2 of them. You're scoring both of these at 1 inch instead of 1/2 inch. And that's just to help them lay more flat than they would if they were scored at 1/2 inch. Okay. Make sure my page is oriented the right way. It is. I'm just going to come in here all the way to the edge, all the way to the edge. Put that one down. And then do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so for the little belly band that actually runs side by side to hold this closed, you're going to need 2 pieces that are 1 1/2 inch by 6 3/8. You're going to score it 1/2 inch on each end. For this, I am actually going to use my ruler. And we're going to line this one up. Oops. As centered as I can. And then we're going to use that to help it get centered up on the other side. So that our photo mat slides in and out of here without any problems. Okay, so the photo mat that would go in there should be 5 1/4 by 7 1/4. This one's not big enough. I don't think I have a scrap over here that's the right size. Okay, so 5 1/4 by 7 1/4, which I think is right there. Okay, and that slides right. Assuming everything is lined up as it should be. So you've worked it in and out of here a few times. It might be kind of catchy at first, but I promise it does work. There we go, and that holds that down. Okay, on our other side of this one, we just have stacked pockets. Very, very simple. 8 3/4 by 5 1/2. Scored at 1/2 inch on each end of the 8 3/4 side, and at 1/2 inch on one side of the 5 1/2 side. The smaller pocket is 8 3/4 by 3 1/2. Again, scored 1/2 inch on each end of the 8 3/4 side, and at one inside at 1/2 inch of the 3 1/2 inch side. Like normal. We're going to trim that corner out there. Okay. Put the big one down first, of course. Up, hold the bottom in and over. And make sure we've got our page oriented right. We do. Just line it up at the bottom. And then do the same thing with the other one. Come on. Let's be very gentle. There we go. Whew, that was close. All right. And there we go. There's our next page. Okay, last page base. This one's very, very simple. We just have 2 large flaps, and then all I did on the inside was just a nice layout. So, depending on which way you want to do it, I had mine going this way. The large flap is going to be 8 5/8 by 7 3/4, scored at 1 inch. The other side is going to be 6 1/4 by 7 1/4, scored at 1 inch as well. So let's get these folded and burnished. Oops, oh, let's not do that. Okay. And again, this is another spot. If you want to put magnets, you can put magnets. If you wanted to have this held closed with ribbon or seam binding or something like that, you could absolutely do that. But this will come in here just like that, and that's all there is to that one. All right, we are on the home stretch. So on the back side of this, we have a pocket, we have a 5x5 waterfall, and we have a little band to hold that waterfall closed. So we're going to put the pocket down first. The pocket is 8 3/4 by 5 1/2. Scored 1/2 inch on the 8 3/4 side on each end, and at 1/2 inch on one side of the 5 1/2 inch side. Again, we're going to cut those little squares out of the corners there so that our pocket lays flat. And then fold and burnish. Get this down on the page. Okay. Line that up. Down it goes. Okay, for the waterfall, you need 5 pages that are 5 inches by 5 1/2. Scored at 1/2 inch on the 5 1/2 inch side. Let's fold and burnish all of these. I'm going to turn this sideways and work from the bottom up. Okay, these should line up exactly top to bottom on the pocket. Okay, there's our first one down, flush with the side and flush top to bottom on the pocket. The next one should line up just like so. And so on and so forth. And of course that one's slightly crooked. We'll burnish it and fix it. There we go. And I think that was me when I folded it, so no worries. I don't know, maybe I scored them funny. That wouldn't surprise me either. They slip ever so slightly when I go to score them. That's what happens. Okay. Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened because I'm just slightly off, but that's okay. All right, so for the band, that's going to have a magnet for sure. That's going to hold all this down. It is 2 1/2 by 7 1/2. Scored at 1/2 inch on the 7 1/2 inch side. Okay. Again, I'm just going to center this up on here. On the end. Push it down, and there we go. I think I did actually end up trimming like 2 inches off of this. Okay, so let's not do 7 1/2. Let's call it 5 1/2. Or if you want it longer, you absolutely could leave it longer, and that would be okay too. I think that was what I had done initially and then changed it. Okay. Let me get my magnets, get those on here. All right, there we go. Now bring all of our pages back in. Let's move this trimmer. Let's grab our book with our base. Okay, so this is going to be just normal. We're actually going to work from the back forward and just get our pages glued onto our hinges. Okay, and you of course don't want to go all the way to the bottom. If you've done this before, you know this. You don't want to go all the way to the bottom so that the pages will turn easily and lay fairly flat. Okay. I'm just going to slip those down on there and then fold it over and pull it back about 1/8 of an inch and then press it down. Okay. That's it. Your first page is in. Let's go to the next one and do the exact same thing again. Over, back about 1/8 of an inch, and then push it down. Okay. And again. I think I have that side up. And again, I'm going to push it down, and pull it back about 1/8 of an inch, and press it down. And since we're getting more to the front here, we're actually going to turn it and do it to this side. I need to add some more glue in here because I don't think that took. And that's fine because this is why we have this nice little tiny tip on here. There we go. Okay. Make sure it held on this side, which it did. Okay, we're on to the last page. Okay. And you absolutely could put these on before you started putting all your flaps and whatnot on here. Sometimes it's easier to do it this way. Sometimes it's not. It just depends on your preference. Okay. Put that down. Make sure it's good and push it down. And there you have it. There's your book. Okay. So all you're left with now is matting and decorating. And this does close much better once you've actually got the book itself in there, the pages and whatnot in there. It does close a lot better. But there you have it. There's your book. To mat this front page, what I found worked the best is to cut whatever paper you're matting this with to 7 7/8 by 7 7/8, and then to cut that triangle piece into it. That seemed to work a little bit better than trying to cut this piece and then cut this piece and, you know, make them work. But there you have it. There is the book. Mat it with the paper of your choosing. Here is my original. Like I said, that's just slightly off right there. The only thing we did not do is there's 2 pockets that I had done on the inside of these 4 by 8, well, 7 7/8 pieces. These are, oh my gosh. And again, they're optional. So the back one would be 4 3/4 by 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. Score it 1/2 inch on 2 sides and then 1/2 inch on one side. The one below is 4 3/4 by, oh, let's see here, that's going to be 3 1/4. Again, same thing, you're going to score it at 1/2 inch on the bottom and 1/2 inch on each side and put those down. You're going to do that for each side. If you want to put those on there, you absolutely do not have to use those pockets. All right, that's it. There you go. I hope you enjoyed this. If you end up making this project, I would love to see it, so please share it at Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations or on my Facebook page, Scrapping Under the Influence, and I'll see you next time. Bye.